Last Step In. Prologue. Quang Tri Province, Vietnam, 1969. The jungle didn't speak. It breathed. It heaved with damp air and twitched under the weight of creatures that had no names in the West. Cicadas buzzed like bone saws. The canopy swayed with the hiss of snakes and the crawl of unseen things. A stench of rotting leaves and blood-soaked earth hung over the mossy ground like a fever dream. This wasn't a place for men. Not for Calder Knox. Not for anyone. He moved low and deliberate, boots sinking softly into the wet floor of the Quang Tri jungle. His M14 was cradled across his chest, finger near the trigger but never quite touching it. Every step was a prayer, every breath a calculation. His mission was simple: scout the terrain ahead of Charlie Company's morning advance, report any movement, mark potential ambush zones. He was 2 clicks out now, well beyond radio range, exactly where they wanted him, exactly where they'd been waiting. He didn't hear the first tripwire. A burst of pressure threw him sideways. The jungle erupted, netting, vines, bodies. A shout in Vietnamese, then the butts of rifles, hands like claws, a fist to the side of his head, then darkness. When he woke up, the light was wrong. Calder was on his back, hands zip-tied to a bamboo stake, shirtless, boots gone. Blood pooled at his left side from a gash beneath his ribs. His mouth tasted like soil and iron. There were 3 of them, Viet Cong. One was young, barely a man. One was old, with dead eyes. The last one smiled too much. The one who smiled held a machete with 2 fingers. He didn't swing it. He toyed with it. They didn't ask questions. They stripped him, beat him, broke fingers, burned his left arm with a cigarette, cut the lobe off his right ear, laughed when he screamed. But that wasn't the worst of it. What they did next, the part that didn't involve bruises or cuts, was the part that never left him, the part that would rot inside him forever. They raped him. They took turns like it was a game, like it was nothing. One of them whispered in his ear the entire time, calling him Ghost Soldier in broken English. When they were done, they left him tied to the stake, bleeding, broken, soaked in sweat and shame. They assumed he'd die overnight, maybe from blood loss, maybe from the animals, maybe from what they'd done. But Calder didn't die. Not then. He laid there for hours, body twitching, mind fraying. He hallucinated voices, saw the sun melting through the jungle canopy, felt ants crawling across his legs like bullets. When night came, the sky roared with thunder, and Calder Knox opened his eyes, not as a man, not anymore, as something else. He bit through the inside of his cheek to stay awake, pushed his body upright with a scream trapped in his throat. His wrists bled around the zip ties. His leg throbbed with infection. But he was alive. Barely. He crawled, found his pack, buried under leaves where they'd tossed it. Inside, he found 2 things: a torn photo of his sister Clara and a foil-wrapped packet of heroin powder. He hadn't planned on using it, not ever, but he needed to quiet the screams in his bones. He mixed it with the last of his tobacco, rolled it into a tight, wet paper, lit it with a busted Zippo that barely sparked. Smoke filled his lungs, and something inside him went still. He found a jagged rock and sawed through the zip ties, bit back the pain, wrapped his ribs with cloth torn from his pants. He checked his old revolver, a rare, hideous thing he'd stolen off a French mercenary, an U-Pach-E, part gun, part blade, part knuckles. It had one bullet left, but that wouldn't be what he used, not tonight. He waited until 3 o'clock in the morning, moved barefoot through the jungle, silent as fog. He found their camp with ease. They hadn't gone far. They'd set up just beyond the ridge. A small fire burned low. One was sleeping. One was pissing against a tree. The last one, the one who smiled, was humming something and playing with a deck of old playing cards. Calder stepped from the trees like a ghost. The first kill was a rock to the head, silent, quick. The second, he stabbed in the spine while he zipped his pants. The man made a choking sound, dropped forward like a broken toy. The last one turned, caught a glimpse of him in the firelight. Calder covered in blood, face slack with heroin, eyes blank like death. The machete was raised, but Calder didn't flinch. He drove the U-Pach-E's blade through the smiling man's throat. Then he twisted. Then he watched. He didn't speak, didn't cry. He burned their bodies, sat in the flames' glow for hours, whispering Clara's name. When the sun rose, Calder Knox didn't go back to base. He walked deeper into the jungle, and the man the military had sent in never came out. The sun bled into the jungle like it was ashamed to rise. Light pushed through the trees in pale beams, each ray filtered through smoke and rot and old ghosts. Calder Knox sat on a log, bare feet in the mud, watching the fire eat the last of the bodies. The jungle hissed around him, alive, judging. He didn't flinch. He hadn't moved in hours. His skin was crusted with dirt and blood and sweat. Flies hovered near his wounds. His breath came slow and even, though his heart should have stopped by now. He was broken, but he was awake, and that was worse. He looked at the U-Pach-E revolver in his hand, stained now, not just with blood, but with the oil of the dead. One bullet still chambered. He could end it, right now. He raised it to his temple. His fingers trembled, and then he lowered it, because he didn't want to die, not anymore. He started walking. No plan, no direction, just movement. He followed game trails, old trenches, and forgotten footprints. His mind spiraled through half memories and phantom screams. The heroin had dulled his body, but not his thoughts. They tore through him like wild dogs. He found a stream, sat in it, let the water wash over his wounds. He stared into the ripples and in them saw flashes. Clara smiling through the back window of a station wagon. The first man he ever killed. A rope, a scream. His own face, younger, terrified. Hopeful, before the war, before the jungle, before the monster. He punched the water until his knuckles bled. Then he kept walking. 2 days passed, maybe 3. No food, just sips of water. He was hallucinating by the time he found the hut. It was abandoned, a military med tent, half swallowed by vines, old supplies, cots, a broken mirror. He stepped inside, body trembling, and collapsed. When he woke up, he wasn't alone. Hey, you hear me? A voice, gravelly, American. Calder blinked through the haze. A shape came into view. A man in a dirty green uniform, kneeling beside him with a rifle strapped to his back. Jesus Christ, the man muttered. You look like hell. Calder tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Name's Tierney. Charlie Company. We've been looking for you. You're Knox, right? Recon? Calder nodded slowly. Holy hell, son. You're lucky you ain't dead. Tierney poured water from a canteen into Calder's mouth. It tasted like metal and life. But as the world came back into focus, Calder's expression didn't change. His eyes were vacant, cold. Tierney leaned back, watching him. We got evac choppers landing in 3 days. I'll get you there. Calder didn't respond. He just stared at the U-Pach-E revolver in his lap. 3 days later, Calder Knox returned to base. The medics patched him up. The officers asked questions. He gave nothing. They wrote reports, filled in blanks with assumptions, claimed he was ambushed and survived. But no one asked about the burns. No one asked about the missing ear. No one asked about the way he stared at walls, eyes unblinking. They didn't want the truth, and he didn't want to share it. Back in the States, they gave him a check, a uniform, and a handshake. No medals, no apology, no healing. The heroin followed him home like a shadow. He found dealers fast, found them in alleys, gas stations, train yards. He moved from place to place, never slept in the same spot twice, never spoke unless forced to. He stayed close to tunnels, to basements, to darkness. The light didn't suit him anymore. The world didn't make sense unless he was beneath it. One night, in an abandoned rail tunnel in Pennsylvania, a homeless man tried to rob him. He didn't hesitate, didn't even speak. He slit the man's throat and sat beside the body until sunrise. When the police came asking, Calder disappeared into the storm drains. They never found him. From that day forward, he was no longer Calder Knox. He was just the man who stayed below. Somewhere beneath Pennsylvania, present day. The city was asleep. It didn't dream anymore. Up there, above the cracks in the concrete and the flickering street lamps, people pretended things made sense. They went to work, took pills, laughed on sidewalks, believed in God. But down here, below it all, truth had roots, and Calder Knox walked in silence. He'd been drifting through storm drains and access tunnels for months, maybe years. Time was a blur. Pain kept him grounded. Hunger kept him sharp. Every rat he killed, every shoe he stole, every scrap of cloth turned bandage. He was surviving, but it wasn't enough. He needed a place, not to live, to haunt. He found it one night beneath an old overpass on the edge of a crumbling neighborhood. A crack in the wall where the runoff streamed heavy from summer storms. Behind it, hidden in vines and rot, was a rusted door. It was open just an inch. Most people would never notice it, but Calder did. He stepped inside. The tunnel was long, damp, and lined with broken tile. The air tasted of mildew and ancient copper. It led to a forgotten utility bunker, abandoned during highway expansions in the ADS concrete rooms. Old office desks, a mess of wires and flickering bulbs that still hummed if kicked right. Calder stood in the center of it all, hands trembling, breath shallow. It was perfect. He sealed the main door shut with a length of rusted rebar, carved makeshift locks from scrap metal. He set traps in the halls, broken glass, nails in boards, tripwires that knocked loose pipes onto anyone who entered. This wasn't a home. This was a FOB, forward operating base. He called it the Hold. He filled the walls with maps, scribbled with charcoal, old city plans, tunnel diagrams, sewer schematics. He connected everything with red yarn, like arteries. He began writing in a black notebook, his field orders. Sometimes it was military jargon. Sometimes it was gibberish. Sometimes it was Clara's name, written over and over. He built shelves for his weapons, a broken lead pipe sharpened to a point, a hammer with nails driven through the head, his Upach-E revolver wrapped in cloth, kissed nightly before sleep, and in the corner of the main room, a wooden chair, facing a wall, with the teeth jar beside it. He started hunting again, not for food, for validation. When another homeless man tried to set up camp near the tunnel mouth, Calder waited until midnight, slit the man's sleeping bag with a blade and dragged him by the ankles into the dark. He carved "liar" into his chest before killing him. A week later, a junkie wandered too close. He strangled her, screamed at her corpse, told her to stand in formation. She didn't respond, so he buried her beneath the concrete with a spoon. His mind no longer knew where the jungle ended and the city began. The rain on the pipes sounded like mortars. The creak of rats in the vents was enemy movement. He started recording himself on a broken tape deck. Orders, confessions, prayers, messages for Clara. They all ended the same. They're coming, and I'll be ready. One night, he heard voices above the tunnel. Young ones, laughing, coughing, footsteps on gravel, a lighter flick. He peered through a hole in the ceiling. 4 teens, 2 boys, broad-shouldered, athletic, the kind that never looked twice at men like Calder. 2 girls, loud, confident. One twirled a flashlight. They were headed toward the door he had sealed, the door that was slightly cracked. They were coming into his fob, into his war zone. He smiled, slow, crooked, sick. He licked his finger, marked a line on the wall, and whispered, "Objective sighted." Chapter 1. The door was already open. "Told you it wasn't just runoff," Talon said, flicking the ash from his Newport into the shallow puddle at his feet. "That's a whole-ass door, man." Rico stepped forward, holding the flashlight steady. The beam cut across the cracked concrete wall of the underpass. Between 2 slabs was a rusty, weather-warped steel door, cracked just enough to tease whatever darkness lay beyond. Lexi let out a mock gasp. A mysterious, slightly open door under a bridge in a forgotten part of town? Yeah, nothing bad has ever happened in one of those. Jazz laughed behind her. "Next thing you know, we're on Dateline. 4 kids walk in, 0 walk out. Tay's the first to die 'cause he's the one who always says it'll be fine." Tay grinned. "Hey, if I die first, at least I'll be famous." "I'm not dying for you to be famous," Lexi shot back. "You guys gonna stand here flirting?" Rico cut in. "Or are we going in or what?" The group exchanged a quick glance. Tay stepped forward first, gripping the door's edge and pulling slowly. It groaned, scraping the floor as air thick with mildew and rot rolled out like a living thing. "Ugh," Jazz pinched her nose. "It smells like hot dog water and dead raccoon in there." "That's oddly specific," Lexi muttered. Rico stepped inside without another word, his flashlight slicing through layers of dust and darkness. The others followed. The door creaked shut behind them. The hallway was narrow, lined with old pipes and crumbling tile. Rust dripped from the ceiling in slow ticks. Water pooled at the corners. The light flickered and caught the edges of what used to be a fire alarm box, long since broken. "This is definitely not up to code," Lexi said. "Shh," Tay said. "You hear that?" The group stopped. "Nothing." "Exactly," Tay grinned. "Dead silence. Kinda peaceful, huh?" Jazz elbowed him. "That's 'cause we're underground in a place nobody's supposed to be. This isn't peaceful. This is pre-murder ambiance." What none of them noticed. A shape shifting silently behind a door frame 20 feet back. Calder Knox held his breath. He watched them move, counted steps, listened to names. 4 targets, 1 familiar, 1 loud, 1 smart, 1 sharp. He smiled. They turned into what used to be a small office space, windows shattered, a desk collapsed, filing cabinets tipped over. "Oh," Tay said, spreading his arms. This right here is the spot." Rico nodded. "Dead serious, we could throw the senior party here. Add lights, a speaker, maybe even a generator." Jazz circled the room. "We'd have to clean the hell out of it and, maybe find out why this place was abandoned in the first place." "It's probably just an old utility hub," Rico replied, scanning a faded map of the tunnels mounted on the wall. "Water line, maybe. City forgot about it." Lexi was by the corner, kicking aside a ratty old tarp. She froze. "Guys, I think someone's been in here." Jazz and Tay joined her. Under the tarp, a pile of blankets, some old tools, and an empty water jug. "Someone lives in here," Lexi whispered. "No shot," Tay said. "This stuff's ancient." "Nope," Jazz countered. That jug's not even yellowed. That's recent. It's probably just some old dude trying to stay warm, Rico added, folding the tarp back. We're not gonna wreck his stuff. Let's keep moving. From the ceiling vent above, Calder lay flat, body wedged between rusted beams. His eyes tracked them like prey. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. The teens followed a hallway that branched left into what looked like a break room. The air here was thicker, the smell worse. Rico gagged. All right, this is new. Something's dead in here. Don't say that, Lexi muttered. I'm not saying it. My nose is, he replied. Tay flipped on his phone flashlight. The light hit a refrigerator still upright in the corner. Dare you to open it? Jazz said. You dare me to do everything. And you usually do it. Tay winked at her, stepped up, and slowly pulled the fridge door open. Click. Nothing. Inside, 2 crushed beer cans and a dead rat. Lexi exhaled. Well, there's the smell. You know what? Tay shut the door. This might actually be the most awesome place ever. They spent the next 20 minutes exploring an old storage room lined with lockers, a half-flooded utility shaft, a long hallway with faded warning signs, and a main room with enough space to dance. This is it, Rico said finally. I'm calling it. This is the new spot. Lexi gave him a look. You mean like for hanging out? For smoking, drinking, hiding from the world. Until the creepy guy comes back, Jazz added. He won't, Tay said. Place is huge. He probably left already, or died. Lexi rolled her eyes. Comforting. Back in the shadows, Calder had drawn their route on a stained notepad. He traced each hallway, each name, each voice. He didn't need to guess what they were doing. He just needed to wait. They'd be back. They always come back. Chapter 2. Progress, High Royalty. If there was a social food chain at Progress High, Tay, Rico, Lexi, and Jazz were at the top, and they weren't sharing space with anyone. They didn't just walk through the front doors, they arrived. Talon James wore a varsity jacket with the sleeves rolled halfway and a pair of sneakers that hadn't hit stores yet. His chain swung with every step and his laugh echoed just enough to turn heads. Rico Banks flanked him, hood up, headphones in, and eyes always scanning. People didn't talk to Rico unless he talked first. That's what made his nod worth something. Lexi Ortiz strode beside Tay in a cropped black hoodie, her hair pinned in place with gold clips and her walk straight out of a music video. She waved to teachers without slowing down. They waved back like she was a celebrity. And Jazz Lopez? She was the calm in their storm. Denim jacket, clean white sneakers, her little brother's name embroidered on the back of her bag. Students moved out of her way like muscle memory. They weren't a friend group. They were a myth. By third period, the rumors had already started. They found some new place to party. It's not a house, it's like underground or something. I heard they got it off a drug dealer who died. They said it's a place nobody knows about, not even cops. In the cafeteria, it got worse. The 4 of them sat at their usual table in the back left corner, just slightly elevated by the sloped floor like a throne. Jazz was texting someone. Rico was quietly eating fries and watching TikToks. Tay was leaned back with his arms over the chair behind Lexi, who was skimming Instagram. Brent Knowles approached, captain of the soccer team, too loud, too confident, desperate to be cool. Yo, Brent said, already smiling too big. Heard something about y'all throwing a party, like the party? Tay didn't move. Maybe. Brent laughed awkwardly. Don't be like that, man. Spill it. I got girls asking me already. Lexi raised an eyebrow. Girls you couldn't get into homecoming. Damn, Jazz muttered, not looking up. Brent chuckled, trying to play it off. Y'all serious, though? You found a spot? We found the spot, Rico finally said. But no one's getting the drop until it's ready. Brent blinked. Why not? Lexi leaned forward, all charm and bite. Because we don't trust you, or anyone. You'd post the address on your story before the first speaker was plugged in. And then Principal Keller shuts it down before it starts. Tay added. Nah. This one's for the books. We're doing it right. Brent raised both hands. All right. Respect. Just let me know when it's happening. Tay smirked. If you're invited. Brent laughed again, awkward, then turned to leave. Behind him, a junior whispered, God, I love them. The rest of the day was filled with passing glances, subtle questions, and wide-eyed stares. Students whispered in hallways. Teachers noticed the energy shift. Lexi and Jazz spent fourth period sketching possible layouts for lights and speakers in a spiral notebook. Rico messaged a cousin who could rent them a generator for cheap. Tay floated through the day like he already had a crown on his head. By sixth period, it was official. Something was coming, and it was going to change Progress High forever. But beneath the city, below the cracked underpass, Calder Knox was already listening, his ear pressed to the concrete, his blade in hand, and the names already etched into his wall. Chapter 3. The War Room. The lighter clicked 3 times before it caught. Calder Knox didn't flinch as the flame sparked, then danced, then held steady over the glass pipe clenched in his cracked fingers. His other hand trembled with the weight of age and addiction, but his eyes stayed sharp, focused. The smoke pulled in deep, burned, sizzled. He exhaled slow. The hiss that followed sounded like the jungle. Clara, he said softly to the dark, eyes rolling back. You remember this part, don't you? He was crouched in the far corner of his bunker, what had once been a break room but now served as his nest. The concrete floor was etched with words, spirals, maps, and symbols. On the walls, yellowed tape held up torn photographs of young men in uniforms, none of them smiling. Next to him, a toolbox full of jagged metal scraps, a spool of thick copper wire, a rusted bow made from repurposed pipe and bicycle string, 2 syringes, a notebook with the names, Tay, Rico, Lexi, Jazz. He traced the names with a nail. 4 intruders, young, fast, loud, but not trained. No formations, no signal calling, no backup. He grinned. I'll play with them, one by one, not all at once. Not this time. He limped toward the hallway and stood at the center. His map room, the heart of the hold. He began to build. Trap 1, the snap arrow. A tripwire strung ankle-high across a narrow hallway, attached to a spring-loaded pipe system behind a broken fuse box. When triggered, it releases a sharpened broomstick with a rusted steak knife duct taped to the end, aimed at mid-chest height. Non-lethal if they're lucky, he whispered. If they're stupid, it goes through a lung. Trap 2, the drop wire. A thin thread tied across a stairway banister, set to trigger a falling shelf loaded with rusty tools. He tests it by tossing a rock. It crashes loud. He laughs like a child who's broken something expensive. They'll think the building's falling apart. And maybe it is. Maybe we all are. Trap 3. The welcome mat. An old welcome mat taken from a junkyard. Beneath it, a sheet of plywood riddled with short nails facing upward. Just deep enough to break skin, not enough to kill. He sets it right in front of the old break room, where they'd laughed, where they'd made plans. They'll bleed, he said, standing over it, and once they bleed, they'll slow down. Every 20 minutes he injects or smokes. His body twitches, his lips mumble, and the flashbacks hit. He's back in Quang Chi, the jungle, the smell, the sound of wet breath and broken English whispering in his ear as they held him down. He sees the smiling one, the one with the cards, laughing as the fire lit his face. He sees Clara, his sister, waiting at the train station, never knowing what they'd done to her brother. He slams his head against the wall until the visions fade, then goes back to work. He paints arrows on the walls, but in the wrong directions, leading them into dead ends, into traps, into madness. He sharpens a spoon until it can cut fabric, tapes it to the ceiling of a corridor just out of reach. If one of them notices it, he thinks, they're smart. If they ignore it, they deserve what comes. He returns to the chair by the teeth jar, opens the notebook, and writes, Field Log 6. Targets will return. They are not civilians. Objective, confuse. Objective, maim. Objective, watch them become afraid. Phase 1, set. Phase 2, observe. Phase 3, cleanse. He laughs again, dry, rusty, like wind through a dead mouth, then whispers, to no one, let's see what they do when the war comes home. Chapter 4. Party Gods in the Making. Yo, y'all sure this cart's not gonna break? Tay said, leaning his entire weight on the handle as Jazz loaded another 24-pack of beer into the bottom. We're not even done, Rico grinned, tossing in 2 bottles of vodka like he was loading a duffel bag for war. They were in Carmel O's Liquors, the biggest and oldest corner store in Bethlehem, half gas station, half beer palace. The owner, Man E, didn't even look up when they walked in. He just gave a wave from the back and said, "Aight, boys, don't knock over my shelves this time." "We'll try," Lexi called back, holding up a family-size bag of spicy chips in each hand. But no promises. They filled 2 carts, bottles, cans, tequila, rum, gummy worms, Doritos, frozen pizza rolls, a Bluetooth speaker the size of a microwave. "This is gonna be legendary," Jazz said, tying her hair into a ponytail. "Like yearbook cover-level legendary." Lexi smirked. "Forget the yearbook. They're gonna rename the football field after us." At the counter, Tay pulled out his dad's black Amex and handed it to Man E with zero hesitation. "You want me to guess the total or just sign my soul?" Man E chuckled. "You want a receipt?" "Nah, let the bank figure it out." Outside, they loaded everything into Rico's black Yukon. The back sagged under the weight of chaos. As Tay shut the trunk, 2 younger girls walking by giggled and waved. "Oh my God, Lexi Ortiz, are you going to the winter dance?" Lexi shrugged. "Only if the DJ's not trash this year." They screamed and walked off like they'd just met a Kardashian. Rico chuckled. "You really do ruin people's lives with one-liners." "It's a talent," Lexi replied. On the drive back to Jazz's house, her parents were out of town all weekend. They blasted music, sang off key, passed around slushies, and took turns roasting Tay's playlist. By the time they pulled into the driveway, the sun was golden and the vibe was electric. This wasn't just a party. This was a legacy. Inside, they dumped everything in the living room. Boxes, bags, speakers, wires. Lexi brought out construction paper, markers, and glitter. "What is this?" Rico blinked. "It's time," she grinned. "We're making the invites." For the next hour, the four of them sprawled out on the floor, surrounded by snacks and soda, making the most chaotic, beautiful hand-drawn invitations Beth Lou Hem had ever seen. One said BYOB or bye in blood-red Sharpie. One had a drawing of Tay with a crown. One just said, "Show up or regret it forever." Lexi accidentally glitter-bombed Rico. Tay drew a terrible picture of Jazz as a pirate. Jazz retaliated by smacking him in the face with a tortilla. Laughter echoed through the house. They were a mess, but they were happy. "We're not giving these out till tomorrow," Tay said, laying back with his hands behind his head. "After we go back and set up." Rico nodded. "We go in, clean up, plug stuff in, make it perfect. Then we let it drop." Lexi looked around at all of them, smiling, glowing, unstoppable. "This is it," she said. "This is going to be the night they talk about at our 10-year reunion." Jazz raised her soda. "To the party of the century." They all clinked cans and shouted, "To the last step in." And miles away in the cold dark of the bunker, a blade scraped across concrete, a trap clicked into place, a jar of teeth trembled on its shelf. The party was coming, and Calder Knox was ready to host. Chapter 5. Ghost Among the Damned. The wind howled low between the alleyways of downtown Beth Lou Hem, dragging garbage across cracked sidewalks like it had a purpose. Most people were asleep by now. The bars had closed. The last buses had hissed off into the night. But Calder Knox didn't sleep. Not above ground. Not unless he had to. Not unless the cold in his bones screamed louder than the voices. Tonight, the voices were quiet. That meant he could hunt. He rose from his nest just after midnight, stepping barefoot across the jagged concrete like he didn't feel the pain anymore. His layers were wrapped tight, a faded military jacket zipped over 3 shirts, 2 scarves looped around his neck. He looked like a ruin of a man, just another drifter in the dark. But everything he wore had been taken from someone else. Every zipper, every patch, every faded button had blood in its memory. His Apache pistol was strapped to his thigh, wrapped in a shredded belt. A broken hammer hung from his hip. Duct tape around the handle, rust on the claw. In his hand, a black bag to carry spoils. In his mind, orders from a mission that no longer existed. Tent City lay on the outskirts, beneath a forgotten bridge between the rail lines and a closed-down mill. At least 24 men and women slept there, curled in their makeshift shelters of blue tarps, salvaged crates, and stolen sleeping bags. Calder called it the Outer Ring, a civilian camp, a target-rich environment. He approached low, crouched like an animal, his breathing shallow, not a sound, not a step misplaced. He moved through shadows like he was sewn into them. The first tent was silent. Inside, a bearded man snoring curled under a Steelers blanket. Calder crept to the edge, peeled the zipper an inch, and slid a hand inside like it was muscle memory. Wallet, empty, pants pocket, loose change, lighter, cough drops. He took the lighter, left the rest, pulled the zipper back up without a sound. At the second campfire circle, a woman and her dog slept under a tarp strung between 2 grocery carts. The dog lifted its head once, sniffed the air. Calder froze, blinked, whistled once, soft and sharp. The dog laid its head back down. "Good soldier," he whispered. He moved between tents like a ghost, unseen, unheard. He cut a shoelace without waking the man wearing it. He stole a can of beans from a backpack while its owner rolled over in their sleep. He found a syringe, still half filled with something golden and warm. He lifted it to the moonlight, held it like a trophy, then jammed it into the meat of his arm and smiled. The world shifted, the cold bled away, the whispers returned. He was in two places again, half in Bethlehem, half back in Quang Chi. A man stepped out from the shadows behind a burned-out bus, hoodie pulled tight, eyes scanning, younger, clean-faced, new. He didn't see Calder until the ghost was already behind him. "Hey," was all the man managed. Calder hit him in the temple with a crack from the hammer, not to kill, to drop. The man hit the pavement, gasping, clutching his head. Calder crouched over him. "You been selling?" "What?" "Drugs, pills, heroin. You holding?" The man fumbled at his hoodie pocket, shook his head. Calder lifted the hammer again, tapped it gently against the man's kneecap. He flinched. Okay, bottom of my sock." Calder pulled a plastic baggie free, 4 pills, 2 folded squares of foil, and a crushed Xanax. He pocketed it all. Then, strangely, he leaned forward and whispered, "Wrong sector, Private. No ID, no permission, no backup. You're already dead." The man blinked, stunned and bleeding. Calder walked off without another word. By the time he returned to the edge of Tent City, his bag was half full. A box of saltines, a can of beer, 3 stolen lighters, a handful of napkins, 2 pairs of socks, a jar of peanut butter. He muttered as he walked, to no one, to someone, to Clara. "You see, they let their guard down. That's what gets them killed. No one checks their 6, no patrol schedule, no perimeter." He pointed to the horizon as if it were a battlefield. "And they wonder why they vanish." He stopped beneath a rusted billboard and stared at it. The old advertisement was peeling, a smiling family eating burgers beneath a bright logo. Calder stared at the child's face, then spit at it. "They never let us come home." He slipped back into the tunnels by 3 o'clock in the morning, moved through his traps, stepped over wires, kicked the rebar wedge loose and slid into his den, laid everything out like sacred offerings. Then, without undressing, collapsed into the wooden chair beside the teeth jar. He licked his lips and whispered, "Supply run complete, base secure, targets inbound, no mercy." Chapter 5. Ghost Among the Damned. The wind howled low between the alleyways of downtown Bethlehem, dragging garbage across cracked sidewalks like it had a purpose. Most people were asleep by now. The bars had closed, the last buses had hissed off into the night. But Calder Knox didn't sleep. Not above ground, not unless he had to, not unless the cold in his bones screamed louder than the voices. Tonight, the voices were quiet. That meant he could hunt. He rose from his nest just after midnight, stepping barefoot across the jagged concrete like he didn't feel the pain anymore. His layers were wrapped tight, a faded military jacket zipped over 3 shirts, 2 scarves looped around his neck. He looked like a ruin of a man, just another drifter in the dark. But everything he wore had been taken from someone else. Every zipper, every patch, every faded button had blood in its memory. His Apache pistol was strapped to his thigh, wrapped in a shredded belt. A broken hammer hung from his hip. Duct tape around the handle, rust on the claw. In his hand, a black bag to carry spoils. In his mind, orders from a mission that no longer existed. Tent City lay on the outskirts, beneath a forgotten bridge between the rail lines and a closed-down mill. At least 24 men and women slept there, curled in their makeshift shelters of blue tarps, salvaged crates, and stolen sleeping bags. Calder called it the Outer Ring. A civilian camp, a target-rich environment. He approached low, crouched like an animal, his breathing shallow. Not a sound, not a step misplaced. He moved through shadows like he was sewn into them. The first tent was silent. Inside, a bearded man snoring, curled under a Steelers blanket. Calder crept to the edge, peeled the zipper an inch, and slid a hand inside like it was muscle memory. Wallet, empty. Pants pocket, loose change, lighter, cough drops. He took the lighter, left the rest, pulled the zipper back up without a sound. At the second campfire circle, a woman and her dog slept under a tarp strung between two grocery carts. The dog lifted its head once, sniffed the air. Calder froze, blinked, whistled once, soft and sharp. The dog laid its head back down. "Good soldier," he whispered. He moved between tents like a ghost, unseen, unheard. He cut a shoelace without waking the man wearing it. He stole a can of beans from a backpack while its owner rolled over in their sleep. He found a syringe still half filled with something golden and warm. He lifted it to the moonlight, held it like a trophy, then jammed it into the meat of his arm and smiled. The world shifted. The cold bled away. The whispers returned. He was in two places again, half in Bethlehem, half back in Quang Chi. A man stepped out from the shadows behind a burned-out bus, hoodie pulled tight, eyes scanning. Younger, clean-faced, new. He didn't see Calder until the ghost was already behind him. "Hey," was all the man managed. Calder hit him in the temple with a crack from the hammer, not to kill, to drop. The man hit the pavement, gasping, clutching his head. Calder crouched over him. "You been selling?" "What?" "Drugs, pills, heroin. You holding?" The man fumbled at his hoodie pocket, shook his head. Calder lifted the hammer again, tapped it gently against the man's kneecap. He flinched. Okay, bottom of my sock." Calder pulled a plastic baggie free, 4 pills, 2 folded squares of foil, and a crushed Xanax. He pocketed it all. Then, strangely, he leaned forward and whispered, "Wrong sector, Private. No ID, no permission, no backup. You're already dead." The man blinked, stunned and bleeding. Calder walked off without another word. By the time he returned to the edge of Tent City, his bag was half full. A box of saltines, a can of beer, 3 stolen lighters, a handful of napkins, 2 pairs of socks, a jar of peanut butter. He muttered as he walked. To no one. To someone. To Clara. You see, they let their guard down. That's what gets them killed. No one checks their 6, no patrol schedule, no perimeter. He pointed to the horizon as if it were a battlefield, and they wonder why they vanish. He stopped beneath a rusted billboard and stared at it. The old advertisement was peeling, a smiling family eating burgers beneath a bright logo. Calder stared at the child's face, then spit at it. "They never let us come home." He slipped back into the tunnels by 3 o'clock in the morning, moved through his traps, stepped over wires, kicked the rebar wedge loose and slid into his den, laid everything out like sacred offerings, then, without undressing, collapsed into the wooden chair beside the teeth jar. He licked his lips and whispered, "Supply run complete. Base secure. Targets inbound. No mercy." Chapter 6. Tomorrow's the drop. Progress High was electric. By 8 o'clock in the morning, people were whispering in hallways, glancing at Tay and Rico like they were celebrities about to leak an album. Teachers tried to teach, but no one was really listening. Not with the rumors flying. Everyone knew it was coming. No one knew when, except 4. "You guys are seriously evil for keeping this from us," Rachel Wentz said, twirling a strand of hair as she trailed behind Lexi and Jazz on the way to class. "You have half the school losing sleep right now." Lexi smirked without looking back. "Good. Sleep's for people who don't get invited." Rachel gasped. "Wait, you mean there's a list?" Jazz turned her head, deadpan. "No, Rachel. I mean you're not invited." Rachel blinked. Lexi laughed. "I'm kidding," Jazz added. "Kind of." Meanwhile, Tay and Rico walked the opposite hall like royalty. Rico wore his football hoodie, headphones around his neck. Tay's chain swung with every step. A freshman asked for a selfie. A junior offered them a ride they didn't need. Even Coach Fallon stopped them outside of homeroom. "You two still leaning toward Penn State?" the coach asked. "Maybe," Rico said, calm as ever. "Recruiters keep calling," Tay added. "We're weighing it." Coach nodded, eyes wide with pride. "Whole damn town's talking about you boys." Tay winked. "They're gonna talk even louder after Saturday." During lunch, the four of them held court at their usual table. Lexi laid out the stack of handmade invitations like a dealer at a high-stakes poker game. Each one was different, some loud, some cryptic, some glittered like a 5-year-old made them on Red Bull. Jazz snapped a photo and posted it with the caption, "Tomorrow, y'all ain't ready." Within minutes, 58 likes, 22 comments, 7 students begging in the replies for the location. Tay leaned back in his chair and looked at the group. "We drop 'em tomorrow, early morning, lockers, desks, hand to hand, old school." "Only the right ones," Rico said. "If we invite everybody, someone's gonna post it and we're cooked." "I made a list last night," Jazz said, pulling it out of her pocket like it was nuclear launch codes. 47 people, max." "Good," Lexi nodded. "That way it's huge, but controlled, like an explosion in slow motion." In 7th period, Tay passed by the senior bulletin board and saw someone had already pinned a note. "Something's coming. You in?" He smiled. They didn't even need to hype it anymore. The school was doing it for them. That night, the group text lit up. Tay. "Set up tomorrow, 3 o'clock in the afternoon sharp. Rico, bring the lights." Jazz. "Got 'em." Lexi. "Printing out labels now, names only, no address." Rico. "Let's make history." Across town, in a hole beneath the earth, Calder Knox sat cross-legged in the dark. He held one of the glittering invitations. He'd taken it from a trash can outside Jazz's house the night before. He held it to his face and whispered, "Invitation accepted." Chapter 7. Before the Jungle. They used to live in a white house on the edge of the tree line just outside Mingo Junction, Ohio. Nothing fancy, paint chipped at the corners, gutters always sagging, porch light flickering like it had a secret. It looked peaceful from the road, but Calder Knox knew better. Inside, the air was heavy, like it had teeth. His father, Robert Knox, a retired Marine with more medals than teeth left in his mouth, ran the place like a base, but only when the bottle wasn't in his hand, and the bottle was always in his hand. Calder was 8 the first time he stepped in front of a swing meant for someone else. Clara was 6. She had wild brown curls and a soft voice, loved painting, laughed at everything. She kept a doll named Max that she carried around like it was sacred. That night, their dad had stumbled in from the shed, already slurring. He didn't like the way Clara was singing, said it made his head hurt. He raised his belt. Calder jumped between them. The belt landed on both of them. He didn't cry, but Clara did, and that's what got them hit again. By the time Calder was 13, his body knew the sound of footsteps on creaky boards like a sixth sense. He could read the rage before it reached the room. He started sleeping with a hammer under his bed, not to use, just to feel like he could. But it never changed anything. His father drank, yelled, hit, slept. And his mother... She left when Clara was 4, didn't even leave a note. The night everything ended came without warning. Calder was 16. Clara was 14. They'd both stayed late at the library. Clara was prepping for a school art show. She'd drawn a picture of the house the way it could have looked, bright, clean, with flowers blooming on the porch. "Maybe if we hang it up, he'll believe it," she'd joked. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. They got home just after dark. The lights were off. The door was open. The house was too quiet. Calder stepped inside first. His father was in the living room, sitting on the floor, half naked and crying into a bottle. Beside him, the doll, Max, torn open, burned at the edges. Calder felt the shift in the air, the kind of quiet that comes after a scream. And then he saw her, Clara, slumped against the hallway wall, blood across her shirt, eyes open but already gone, the hammer under his bed. He should have grabbed it, should have stayed home, should have stopped it, but he hadn't. He froze. His father looked up at him, tears and whiskey mixing down his beard. "She wouldn't shut up," he whispered. "She kept singing that damn song." Calder didn't say a word. He didn't move. His father put the shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. The sound didn't leave Calder's ears for years. The police said it was a murder-suicide. Tragic. Local paper ran a tiny article. No pictures, no names. He was put in state care for 6 months, then pushed into a foster home. He didn't last long. Stopped talking. Got caught with brass knuckles and a pocket knife. His probation officer asked him what he wanted from life. He said, a uniform. He enlisted the day he turned 17, not for pride, not for honor, just to bleed in someone else's war. But the jungle didn't save him. It just matched what he already felt inside. Empty, alone, already dead. Chapter 8. Almost touched. The sun was still out when they arrived. Rico's Yukon backed into the dead grass beside the underpass, trunk rattling from the bass thumping inside. Tay hopped out first, sunglasses on despite the fading light, and grabbed the first box of gear. Behind him, Lexi and Jazz stepped out with drinks in hand, laughing about something someone had posted on Snap about them starting a cult. "Hell yeah, we are," Jazz said, pulling out a crate of Solo cups. "A cult of fun." "I just don't want to be sacrificed first," Lexi smirked. "Too late," Rico said, walking by with 2 foldable tables balanced across his shoulder. "You're the loudest. That's always who dies first in horror movies." Lexi threw a chip at him. "And you're the quiet one. Everyone trusts the quiet one, until they're slicing people up." They approached the cracked door of the underpass tunnel. It hadn't moved since last time, still slightly ajar, still groaning on rusty hinges, still waiting. "Let's go, legends," Tay said, nudging it open. "Time to build the kingdom." Inside it was exactly how they left it. The narrow hallway greeted them with dripping pipes and stale, humid air. Lexi gagged playfully. "God, it smells like wet coins and gym socks in here." They moved in deeper, navigating around the edge of a shallow puddle that had grown overnight. They didn't see it, but half an inch away from Lexi's foot, a tripwire stretched across the floor, secured by 2 bent nails. She danced over it with a laugh. "Ew, this puddle's warm. That means it's like haunted." Rico followed, unaware, stepping on a broken tile just beside the pressure plate hidden underneath. Click. Nothing. It missed by millimeters. Calder Knox watched from a hidden wall cavity, crouched low, breathing through his nose. He was completely still. His eyes twitched. "They almost triggered phase 1, he muttered. "Almost." Let 'em get comfortable. Back in the main room, the teens got to work. Tay and Rico set up the tables. They cracked beers while unpacking lights and wiring them to a power inverter Rico had borrowed from his cousin. "Yo," Tay said, lifting a speaker above his head. "This place is about to go from serial killer chic to underground Vegas." Lexi threw confetti in the air. "Glitter makes everything less murdery." "I still think someone lives here," Jazz said, wiping dust off a desk. "But maybe they're cool. Cool enough to let us party in their evil lair?" Rico raised a brow. "I mean, we brought booze." She shrugged. In the hallway outside the room, Calder silently stepped over the welcome mat, the one with the nail board beneath. He pressed it with a stick, still sharp, still hidden. He crouched by the door, listening to the music as it kicked in. Boom, boom, boom. A remix of something popular. Bass echoed down the hall. His fingers twitched. "They're marking territory," he whispered. "Drawing lines. Untrained, loud, confident. That's when they break easiest." He walked back to his den, passing another trap, an arrow trap loaded and cocked behind a breaker box. The string was strung across eye level. Tay had unknowingly ducked to tie his shoe right beneath it earlier. Calder had watched the whole thing, had almost pulled the wire himself, but didn't. Not yet. Hours passed. The bunker changed. Tables covered in snacks, lights blinking along the ceiling, posters taped to walls, a small cooler full of ice, beer, and soda. The air was still heavy, but now it buzzed with anticipation. "I can't believe this place is ours," Lexi said, spinning slowly under a makeshift strobe light. "No teachers," Tay added. "No cops. No rules," Rico said, taking a swig. "No escape," Calder whispered, watching from a dark vent overhead. Jazz unlocked her phone and opened a group thread titled, "The Step In." 47 names, she said. "These are the chosen ones." Lexi scrolled through the invite list on her phone. "This is it. Tomorrow at noon, everyone gets the address." Tay nodded. "And no one's backing out. If you get this invite, you show up." Rico created a location pin and labeled it, "Last step in, don't be late." They all cheered. They were proud, buzzed, untouchable. Tay held his drink high. "To the best damn night of our lives." They clinked cans and bottles, laughed loud, stayed just long enough to feel like kings, then packed up and left the speakers covered and lights ready for tomorrow night. And when they left, Calder Knox stepped into the center of the room, stared at the strobe light blinking. He tilted his head like a curious dog, then punched it off the ceiling with one swing. "Let the games begin," he whispered. Chapter 9. The countdown ends. It hit at exactly noon. Phones buzzed. Notifications lit up the halls of Progress High like a wave of electricity. Desks creaked as students leaned over to check. Murmurs turned into laughter, turned into whoops of celebration. "It's real. Yo, I just got it. They actually sent it. We partying in a tunnel? Bro." The group thread, the step in, blew up with texts, reactions, and uncontainable hype. Maddie. "L. Y'all insane for this LOL. I love it." Chris J. "I'm bringing 2 bottles and 5 people." Raina. "An underpass? Are we gonna get murdered or are we getting lit?" Damien R. "If I die here, I died a legend." Attached to every invite was a single sentence in red letters. The underpass. You'll know it when you see it. By the end of lunch period, the school was a zoo. People walked by Tay, Rico, Lexi, and Jazz like they were royalty. Claps on the back, handshakes, quick hugs, girls asking what to wear, guys asking what to bring, teachers catching wind but not able to pin anything down. Even the assistant principal whispered to another staff member, "Just let them have it. This school needs a win." In the locker room after gym, Tay and Rico changed into fresh fits early. "You ready for this?" Tay asked, checking his reflection. Chain on point, shirt clean, confidence oozing. "Been ready," Rico said, tightening his laces. "But I got this weird feeling." "What kind of feeling?" Rico paused. "Like the final drive in a playoff game. That calm before something feeling. You feel it?" Tay nodded once. "Yeah, I feel it too." By 2:30 in the afternoon, the four of them dipped out the back parking lot, skipping last period like they owned the building. The music in Rico's Yukon was loud. The drinks were cold. The excitement was untouchable. They were kings, queens, icons. And beneath the city, Calder Knox was waiting. They reached the underpass at 3:12 in the afternoon. Sunlight beamed through the overpass slats in long golden lines. The wind was still. The cracked door was still there, still just slightly open. Jazz slid her sunglasses down. "She's waiting for us." Tay nodded. "Let's make her proud." Inside, everything looked exactly the same. Lights still up, tables untouched, no sign of disturbance. The puddles hadn't grown, the wires hadn't shifted. Even the air was the same, damp, thick, and slightly metallic. Rico walked down the hall, cooler in one hand, speaker in the other. He didn't see the nail-rigged welcome mat underfoot, but he stepped just to the left of it. Lexi spun beside him, humming something. She twirled past a tripwire like it was part of the dance. Jazz was mid-sip when she stopped. "Does it feel colder in here?" Tay shook his head. "That's just the tunnel vibe. We're underground. Concrete doesn't trap heat." Jazz frowned. "Still feels off." They set everything up again. Streamers, signs, drinks. Rico double-checked the lights. Tay tested the speakers. Lexi lined the cups in perfect rows. Jazz took another sip and snapped a pic of the spread for her private story. The room looked like a rave waiting to happen. It was perfect. Too perfect. Then it happened. Slam. The sound echoed through the tunnels like a gunshot. The four of them froze. Tay stood slowly. "What the hell was that?" Jazz's cup tipped over, spilling red down her shoe. "Was that the door?" Rico was already moving back toward the hallway. "Nah, couldn't be. We propped it with a..." He stopped. They all followed him slowly. The hallway was dark, too dark, and the door they came through, shut, fully, locked from the outside. "Okay," Tay said, hands raised, voice calm. "Maybe it just fell. Maybe wind or something." "There's no wind," Lexi cut in. Her voice trembled. Jazz pulled out her phone. "No service." "Guys," Rico said quietly, "we didn't close that door." Silence. No music. No laughter. No footsteps. Just breathing, and the sound of pipes dripping like a clock ticking down. Somewhere behind the walls, a wire tightened. A blade rose slightly in its latch. A shape moved soundlessly. Calder Knox smiled. The game had begun. Chapter 10. The first drop of blood. Bang, bang, clunk. Tay threw his shoulder into the door again, grunting. The steel didn't budge. Rico stepped in next. He pushed, pulled, even slammed his foot at the edge. Nothing. Lexi crossed her arms tightly, backing up a few steps from the door frame. "Okay, seriously, Why isn't it opening? Jazz peered up the stairs behind them, then back at the hallway. It closed too hard. It probably locked. From the outside. Wind, maybe? Tay offered, wiping sweat from his brow. Bro, it's a steel door. That thing didn't just drift shut, Rico muttered. Okay, Tay exhaled. But even if it did lock, we're good. People are showing up in like 40 minutes. Worst case, they pull it open and we laugh about this over shots. Jazz glanced at Lexi. Lexi bit her lip. Yeah, okay. We're not trapped. That'd be dumb. You're with us, Rico said. You forget who we are? Tay slapped his chest. QB1, baby. Ain't no door stopping this shoulder. Lexi smirked. All right. You meatheads better not let anything weird happen to me. We got you. Jazz nodded. The group shared a look, one last joke away from brushing it off, and then they turned back down the stairs. The hallway greeted them with that same quiet, humid breath. The flickering lights, the half-shadowed corners. But now, there was a weight in the air, like something was awake. Tay went first. Rico followed. Then came Lexi, then Jazz, holding her phone like a flashlight even though the lights were on. I just want one dance before the chaos, Lexi muttered. One drink, one snap. A sharp thwick cut through the hallway. Thud. Ah! Rico's body dropped, hard, his leg twisted beneath him, blood dripping fast from just below his thigh. Rico! Jazz screamed. Lexi dropped to her knees beside him, her hands already shaking. What the hell? What happened? Tay grabbed Rico's shoulders. Bro, talk to me. What? They all saw it at once, a rigged pipe, triggered by a low tripwire. From the wall, a long metal spike taped up with a sharpened stake now jutted from Rico's leg. It had missed his artery, but not by much. F. Rico shouted, gripping the wound. It's a trap. Someone said a F. Fucking trap. Hold on, bro, I got you, Tay said, trying to brace him. Lexi backed up slowly. We need to get out. She froze. Who? The hell? They all turned to follow her gaze. At the far end of the hallway, standing half in shadow at the mouth of a door none of them had noticed before, a man, tall, ragged, layered in clothing like armor, his face partly obscured by a scarf and dirt. One eye looked normal, the other milky, unblinking. He didn't move. Didn't speak. He just watched them. Still, silent, breathing. Lexi's voice cracked. Who the F.C.K. is that? Hey! Tay shouted. Hey! What the hell is this? The man said nothing. He slowly turned and walked away into the shadows behind the door. Gone. What the F? Jazz whispered. Tay helped Rico upright, slinging his arm over his shoulder. We're getting out. Now. Tonight. F.K. the party. Lexi looked at the blood on the floor. He said that. He's here. Jazz backed up slowly. Guys, we're not alone. We're not even close. Rico gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. We walked into his house. And somewhere beyond the door, Calder Knox wrote something down in his notebook. Calm. Patient. He smiled and whispered. Phase 1. Initiated. Chapter 11. Blood on the floor. Rico was fading. His breathing came in stutters, sweat soaking through his hoodie, blood darkening his pant leg like a spreading ink stain. Tay helped him shuffle down the hall, eyes wide, panic rising like bile. Come on, bro. Stay with me. You're good. Just breathe. Lexi and Jazz followed, watching every shadow like it might reach out and grab them. Their confidence from earlier was gone. replaced by raw fear. They were athletes, fighters, survivors, but none of them had been hunted before. They reached the main room, the one filled with party lights and snacks just an hour ago. Now it felt like a slaughterhouse waiting for the first scream. Rico dropped to the floor with a grunt. "Tay, door. Open the kicking door." "I will. Just hold up," Tay said. He turned to the others. "Lexi, Jazz, stay with him. Apply pressure. I'm checking the hallway again. I'm getting that seeking door open." "Tay, don't," Lexi started. "I got this," he said, eyes blazing. "I'm not letting him die here." He moved fast, retracing their steps, scanning every corner. The hallway was empty, but something about it felt wrong. Too still, too quiet, like the building was holding its breath. Tay stepped around the nail-rigged welcome mat. He passed a shadowed doorway, just barely. That's when the floor creaked. Crack. From the darkness, Calder exploded forward, a pipe in one hand, his Apache pistol in the other. He slammed Tay against the wall, hard. Tay fought back instantly, his reflexes kicking in, fists swinging. "Who the fuck are you?" Tay roared. Calder didn't answer. He drove the pipe into Tay's ribs, once, twice, then ducked as Tay tackled him to the ground. They rolled, fists flying, limbs scrambling. Lexi screamed in the distance. "He's here! He's on Tay!" Rico struggled up, trying to stand. I got it! Jazz caught him. "No, don't, Rico, don't!" But Rico pushed her off. "That's my boy." He stumbled into the hallway, his leg trailing blood. He saw the fight, saw Tay and Calder locked in combat, and despite the pain, despite the fear, he charged. He tackled Calder from behind, slamming him into the wall. The Apache clattered to the floor. "Get out of our house!" Rico shouted, but Calder moved like a ghost, like he'd been built for this. He spun, grabbed Rico's injured leg and wrenched it hard. Rico screamed, dropped, and Calder drove the rusted pipe through his chest. The breath left Rico's body instantly. His eyes blinked. Once, Tay roared and swung, but Calder stepped back, fast, precise, and cracked Tay across the head with the butt of the gun. Tay dropped, hard. Lexi and Jazz watched in horror from the main room. Jazz tried to run toward them. Lexi yanked her back. "No, Jazz, no, he's got them!" Rico lay still, blood pooling. Tay groaned, barely conscious. And Calder? He turned to look at the girls, lifted one bloody finger, put it to his lips. "Shh!" Then walked into the dark. The room was silent. And then the sobbing started. Lexi screamed, Jazz dropped to her knees, and somewhere above them, faintly through the vents, laughter. Chapter 12. When the strong start falling. They sat in silence. The old office was barely lit, only the flicker of a broken overhead bulb, twitching like it was nervous too. Jazz sat with her arms wrapped tight around Rico's hoodie, staring at nothing. Her cheeks were dry now. No more tears, just empty. Lexi knelt beside Tay, pressing the last clean shirt they had against the open wound near his ribs. His breathing was shallow, wet, the kind of breathing that didn't last long. Tay's eyes blinked slowly. He was trying to stay with him. "You're okay," Lexi whispered, lying straight to his face. "You're gonna be okay." "I'm not," Tay croaked, a bloody smile twitching at the corner of his mouth. "I can feel it. It's cold inside." "No," Jazz said, suddenly standing. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to quit on us, Tay." "I'm not quitting," he rasped. "I'm just out of time." They tried to keep pressure on the wound, tried to hold him up, tried not to let the horror of Rico's death repeat itself in front of them. But 10 minutes later, Tay stopped blinking. Then he stopped breathing, and his head slumped forward. Lexi didn't scream. She just let out a single sound, a crushed, broken sob that didn't even sound human. Jazz covered her mouth. "No, no, no." They sat with him, for a minute, for a few. They didn't know how long. Long enough for it to feel real. Their quarterback was gone. Their safety was gone. And now it was just the two of them. Lexi finally stood. "We have to move." Jazz didn't answer. "Jazz, we stay here. We die here." Still nothing. Lexi grabbed her wrist. "Get up." Jazz's eyes were dead, but she nodded. Together, they slid open the office door and stepped back into the corridor. The lights flickered again. One hallway pulsed red, emergency lighting from decades ago, flickering back to life like it was possessed. They turned down a hallway near the back, one they hadn't used before. Lexi held Tay's lighter in her hand now, just for comfort. "I think there's another way out," she said. "We haven't seen everything yet. There's..." Snap. Metal bit flesh. Jazz turned just in time to see Lexi jerk forward, her leg caught in a wire loop that tightened instantly. Teeth, metal ones, attached to a clamp trap that bit deep into her ankle. Lexi screamed. She dropped to the floor, clawing at the trap. Jazz rushed over. "Oh my God! Oh my God! What do I do?" "Get it off!" Lexi screamed. "Get it off me!" Jazz tried, tugged at the trap. Blood poured out. Lexi thrashed, screaming into the concrete. Jazz sobbed. "I don't know how. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Lexi looked up at her, pale, eyes wide with pain. "We're gonna die down here." Behind them, a door creaked open, and the faint sound of boots, slow, heavy, steady. Calder was coming, and now the girls had no one left. Chapter 13. Formation. Lexi's breath came in ragged bursts as she crawled, dragging her injured leg behind her. The pain wasn't sharp anymore. It was full, a burning, pulsing scream under her skin. Blood soaked through her jeans and left a trail behind her on the concrete floor. Tay was gone. Rico was gone. And Jazz stood above her, holding a bent metal pipe with both hands, her jaw clenched, her eyes glassy. "I'm not running anymore," Jazz said. Lexi looked up at her. "Then we die here." Jazz didn't blink. "Maybe, but he bleeds first." They didn't have to wait long. Calder Knox stepped through the hallway shadows like something born from them. His face was a mess, one eye swollen shut, nose crooked from the pipe to the face. Dried blood ran in jagged trails down his neck. He was limping slightly now, left leg dragging a little. But he was calm, controlled, focused. In one hand, a hammer. In the other, a jagged knife tied with red cloth. The Apache pistol was tucked back into his belt. "Two left," he said, voice gravel on stone. "Tight formation. No discipline. No training." Lexi pushed herself upright, gripping the side of a desk to stand. Jazz didn't say anything. She just swung. The fight exploded. Jazz screamed and charged, swinging the pipe like a baseball bat. Calder ducked the first strike and caught her side with the flat of the hammer, sending her stumbling sideways, but she didn't fall. Lexi came behind him, grabbing his coat, trying to pull him down. He spun, elbowed her in the jaw hard. Lexi dropped, dazed, spitting blood. Jazz took the chance. Crack! She drove the pipe straight into his shoulder with both hands. He shouted, staggered. Thwack! Another hit to the ribs. Boom! She rammed him into the wall with a full-body tackle. "Die, you fucking psycho!" Jazz screamed, wild tears running down her face. He dropped the knife, but he still had the hammer. He swung wildly, missed once, then caught her in the thigh with a blow that echoed through the bunker. Jazz screamed and dropped. Lexi tried to stand again, her vision doubled, ears ringing. Calder kicked the pipe away, raised the hammer. Lexi grabbed a bottle from the table nearby. She shattered it over his head. Glass and blood sprayed. He roared, fell back, staggered. Jazz dragged herself toward the fallen knife, fingers outstretched. He saw. He stomped her hand. Crunch. She screamed, fingers bending the wrong way. He grabbed her by the collar and yanked her upright. "You fought harder than most," he muttered, "but you don't leave the kill box." Then he slammed the hammer into her temple. Once, twice, a third time. Her body dropped before the sound even finished. Lexi screamed. She didn't run. She couldn't. She crawled. She reached the Apache, lifted it, blood in her eyes. "Get away from her!" Calder turned. He smiled, a bloody, broken smile. She pulled the trigger. Click. No bullet, just air. She stared, then whimpered, "Please." He stepped forward, slowly, calmly, towering over her now. "You're the last." He took out a second pistol from inside his coat. Lexi didn't cry. She stared him down. "Clara would have fought better," he whispered. Then, bang! She dropped next to Jazz. The hallway went still. The only sound was Calder's breath. He looked at the bodies around him. Tay, Rico, Jazz, Lexi, strewn in different rooms, different poses. Broken. Gone. He wiped blood from his face and stood. Then he yelled, loud and hoarse, "Get into formation!" His voice echoed through the tunnels like a god shouting from the grave. No one moved. He laughed, a dry, sick rasp, and then he dropped to his knees beside the Apache pistol and pulled out a dirty syringe. He didn't check what it was. He just plunged it into his neck. The world bent sideways, the pain blurred, and he closed his eyes just for a moment. That's when it came. Creak. The door above. Voices. "Yo, this is the spot." "Hell yeah, let's go. Someone get the lights." Calder's eyes opened. His pupils shrank to pinpoints. More were coming. He stood slowly, body shaking, one leg dragging. He looked at the mess around him, the trail of blood, the chaos. Then he turned, slipped into the darkness like smoke, and disappeared. Author's note. To everyone who picked up Last Step In and made it to the very last page, thank you. Whether you screamed, cheered, cried, or read it all in one sitting, just know you're part of this story now. This book was written to drag you down, shake you up, and leave you looking over your shoulder. If it did that, even once, then mission accomplished. If you enjoyed the ride, follow us on social media at TOGETHERWEFEAR for updates, new stories, giveaways, and what's next. Share your favorite chapter, tag a friend, scream with us, because the dream doesn't end here. The goal is bigger. The goal is the screen. This story, this fear, it's just the beginning. Let's turn it into a movie. Until next time, stay afraid, and don't take the last step in unless you're ready to never come out. Poe Nocturne. Poe.